one of the things that we have to understand and realize when it comes to the ministry of Jesus, that his number one purpose for being here was not necessarily to perform miracles. Miracles were more like almost something like a sideline. But his main goal for being here was to seek and to save those which are lost. So because of his heart of compassion, and he couldn't stand to see people suffering. So he would spend a lot of time healing people, but that was not his number one, purpose for coming here. Miracle was not his number one purpose. And I often hear people wonder if miracles really happen in our day and time. And I've even encountered some people who said that they don't believe that miracles happen because they never experienced miracles. Well, just because you never experienced them does not mean that they don't happen. But miracles still happen. They may not happen in the way that you may see in the Bible, but nevertheless, God still performs miracles, today. And what you have to understand about miracles is that miracles are unexplainable events that happen in our lives. And whenever God performs a miracle in your life, he doesn't perform it so you can necessarily try to explain things to people. Because the truth is, if you can explain it, then it's really not a miracle. Because miracles are unexplainable. So, and the purpose when he does miracles in your life, it's not for you to explain, but for you to proclaim. In other words, for you to praise God. That's the whole purpose of the miracle. Because whenever God would perform miracles in your life, if you try to explain certain things, for the most part, people will probably think you lost your mind because of the things or the events, that happen. So miracles are not necessarily, meant for you to try to explain them. And I can remember a few years ago coming home from work, and I was working at the prison, got off from work at 6 o'clock. And I had just bought a brand new car. It's the first brand new car I ever had, and coming home from work. And I think I had that car maybe about a month. And it was on my way home from work. And when you're on Highway 69, coming from the prison area at 6 o'clock, so it's just traffic everywhere. And as I came to my exit to get off, had a guy that was coming from this Twin City highway that merged onto the freeway and hit my car on the passenger side between the front door and the back door. And when he hit me, I lost control of the car. And I'm going 60-something miles an hour, and I'm spinning around on 69 and all this traffic, and after everything was said and done, I knew that it was nothing more than a miracle, because I can explain some of the things that happened, but I can't necessarily explain the miracle itself. In other words, I can explain the event, how the guy hit me, what happened, but what I can't explain is why didn't those other vehicles hit me while I was spinning around in the middle of the street? So you had 18-wheelers, everything coming my way. But for some reason, all these vehicles were able to avoid me. But nevertheless, my vehicle was totaled out because it spin around so much and crashed into this brick wall, brick median. And the lady who came to my car got my phone and asked me if there was anybody I wanted her to call. So I told her, so she punched my sister, called my sister. And once my sister arrived, I had already left, go to the hospital. And when she got there, she saw the vehicle. and just the destruction of that vehicle, how crushed up it was. And so in her mind, she just knew that once she got to the hospital, that I would be, in bad shape. But when she got there, and I'm in the emergency room, I'm sitting on the table, just sitting over there talking. And just so happened, I was blessed enough to where all I got was a concussion out of it. Well, like I said, to me, that was nothing more than a miracle. But like I said, I can explain some of the events that happened, but I can't explain the other things I cannot explain. Is, how? How did I survive this? So, like I told you earlier, if I can explain it, then it's not a miracle. Like I said, miracles are unexplainable events that occur in our lives. So, when you deal with this story about Jairus and the bleeding woman, on the surface, this may appear to be like two stories. But in reality, this is simply one story with two events that are intertwined with each other. It's kind of like, the best way I can explain it is like when you're watching one of your favorite movies on TV, and they may be showing one scene, then they'll go to another scene, but it's the same movie. They go to one thing, they go to another thing, they may come back to a certain thing that they started off with. Well, that's the same thing that's occurring right here. This is not two different stories, it's just one story with two different events. And the interesting thing about this is that what I noticed about this as I dug into this lesson, it was some things that stood out about both of the people in this story. First of all, they both had a problem. And second was, they knew who to go to with that problem. And the other thing was that they both had faith. But the difference was, it was the way they exercised the faith that they had. Because when you think about, look at the picture like with Jairus, it talks about how when Jesus had arrived to the other side of the lake where they were, how Jairus came and met Jesus and fell at his feet and begged him, and pleaded with him to come and heal his dying daughter. So you have to remember that now when Jesus arrived and talked about how people were basically crushing him. They were all around him, crushing him. And it's at the point where, he couldn't really move around. But yet Jairus made his way to Jesus. Now, perhaps Jairus happened to be able to get to Jesus without having to fight so much through the crowd was because Jairus was a ruler of the synagogue. And sometimes, I guess because of the way he dressed, so people would probably move out the way because of the position that he holds, or the position that he held. So that would probably allow him to get to Jesus. But on the other hand, you look at the woman, her situation was completely different. Because say she had this issue of bleeding. So with her, she would have been considered to be unclean. So, and this woman, say, for exercising her faith, she was taking a big chance because, for one, in that particular time, it was unlawful or against the custom for a woman to touch another man, to touch a man in public, especially if that man was not her husband. And the second thing was that she was unclean, so she wasn't supposed to be around other people, and that anybody that came into contact with her, they would have been considered unclean. But I have to almost think that in this woman's mind, she wasn't thinking about that. As a matter of fact, she didn't care, because at the time, all she was thinking about was getting healed. Because when you go back and read in, I think it's in Matthew Gospel, he goes into a little more detail about the woman, because he said that the woman said that she had said to herself, if I could just touch his cloak, I shall be healed. Now, when you start dealing with their faith, Jairus came and pleaded with Jesus to come and heal his daughter. Well, apparently, like one writer was saying, Jairus perhaps knew something about what Jesus could really do, because when you think about it, you go back where it talked about the episode where they had this centurion soldier who had a servant that was dying, sick. And the centurion went to the synagogue and got synagogue leaders to go to Jesus to get Jesus to come and heal his servant. Well, some writers believe that Jairus was probably one of those people that went to Jesus at the request, of the centurion. So it's possible that Jairus was one of those leaders, and so that would explain why, he went to Jesus and knowing that Jesus, could heal his daughter. So apparently Jairus had witnessed the healing, of the centurion's servant. So, that's quite possible why he actually went. But on the other hand, with this lady, I guess she just simply heard something about Jesus, that he can heal. So, but like I said, their situation is completely different, a completely different situation. But the question is, what are you willing to go through to get to Jesus? If you have issues going on in your life, are you willing to fight your way through just to get to Jesus? And where do you go? Matter of fact, where do you go for your healing? If you know, like Jesus is the only one who can heal. But like I was saying earlier, people have a hard time believing that, these miracles really occur, but miracles happen today. And what it takes is like I said earlier, you have to have faith to believe that Jesus could do what he do. But now, one of the things I learned when I was reading this lesson is that there were times, a lot of times when you read the Bible, when Jesus would heal people, he would always challenge their faith, most of the time, because he would ask them, do you believe that I could do this? But then there are other times when there's no mention of faith at all. He would just heal people. For instance, when you go back and read, I think it's Luke chapter 8, I think it's somewhere around verse 22, when he healed a man who was demon-possessed. And so when he encountered this man, when he crossed the lake, he encountered this man, he asked the man what was his name. The man said his name was Legion. Well, in reality, he wasn't talking to the man. He was actually talking to the demon, because the man was demon-possessed. But if you read that story, you will find that Jesus never asked the man anything about faith. And I believe the reason he did that, because, like I said earlier, when Jesus came, his ministry was not so much about healing, but about saving people. And like I said, healing was more like, almost like a sideline that he did, because of his heart of compassion. And he couldn't stand to see people suffering. So sometimes he would heal people. So in this man's case, that had nothing to do with the man's faith, and didn't even talk about the man's faith. But Jesus, cast these demons out. And so that tells another thing about Jesus, about the authority that Jesus has. So when you go back and even read that episode, you will find that Jesus has authority over nature, because in that same passage, it talks about how he had calmed the storm. So he has power and authority over nature. And then since he healed this man of these demons, then we know that he has authority over the demonic world. And then when you get to the story of Jairus and the bleeding woman, you know that he has authority over sickness and death. Yeah. Yes, sir. So there's really nothing that Jesus can't do. So a lot of times stuff will, like I say, a lot of times stuff will depend on your faith. And sometimes your healing can come as a result of the faith of somebody else. For instance, in the story where he had these 4 men had a paralyzed friend, and they brought this man to Jesus for healing. But the house where they brought the man, they couldn't get in because of the crowd. But the Bible said they went up to the roof, tore the roof up, and lowered the man down right in front of Jesus. But now, again, there was nothing mentioned about the man's faith, but it was the faith of his friend. Because sometimes, it just shows you just the power, how powerful faith can be. Because if you have faith and you have strong faith, your faith could impact people around you and people connected to you. Like for instance, you may have, a child that is, just going astray. But you pray and you pray and you pray and you have faith, and your faith is strong. Well, just through your faith, God can actually change that child's life and turn them around. Because like I think nothing is impossible, with God. He could do anything. But like I said, a lot of times he would challenge you with your faith, in most cases. Because the Bible lets us know that without faith it's impossible, to please God. It didn't say it was hard. It didn't say it was difficult. It said it's impossible to please God. And that's one of the things I liked about the woman with the issue of blood. Because her faith was so strong that when you read the other gospel, she said that if I could just touch his cloak, I can be healed. But notice what she didn't say. She didn't say that if I touch his cloak, there's a possibility I can get healed. If I touch his cloak, perhaps I can get healed, or maybe I can get healed. But she said that if I can touch his cloak, I shall be. Because here's the difference. Whenever you allow doubt to set in, you will completely eradicate faith. Because faith and doubt can't sit at the same table. Faith and doubt, they can't occupy the same room. No, it's either you believe Jesus or you don't. It's either all or nothing at all. You can't come to Jesus. You can't come to him half-stepping. So if you believe that he could do something, you have to have strong faith. You have to believe it. Erase all doubt. Because whenever you allow doubt to set in, like I said, you eradicate faith. And so what Jairus and this woman did was, they expressed their faith. They expressed their faith. And they had strong faith. As a matter of fact, when you read the story about the woman, it talks about how the crowd pressed against Jesus. And how this woman, worked her way just to touch him. And when she touched him, and Jesus' response was like, who touched me? And you can imagine, I can just imagine Peter like, what do you mean, who touched you? Look at all these people, people almost crushing you. And you ask, who touched you? But it was something about this woman touched. Because now remember, you had all these people crowding him. They was like almost crushing him. And so you had people that were rubbing up against him, touching him. But you ever notice none of these people were actually getting healed? Because most of those touches were like accidental touches. But the touch that this woman had when she touched Jesus, it wasn't accidental, it was on purpose. But like I said, she took a chance. Like I said, she took a big chance. Like I was telling you earlier, she took a big chance because of her condition. Because like I said, according to that custom, she was unclean. She wasn't even supposed to be around people. And like I said earlier, she wasn't even supposed to even touch a man in public. That wasn't her husband. That was the custom. But her faith was so strong, like I said, she didn't care about all that at the time. She wanted healing. Because she had been dealing with something for 12 years. So, like she said, well, I guess in her mind, she was like, well, I guess they'll get over it because she's going to do what she has to do to get her healing. She wasn't going to let anything stop her, from getting to Jesus. And so when Jesus asked that question, who touched me? And so you can imagine the crowd kind of stopped. And people kind of started to back away. And then you see this woman just sitting there by herself on the ground, trembling out of fear. But Jesus went to the woman and told her, daughter, be of peace, your faith have healed you. So it wasn't so much the touch that did it, but it was her faith. Yeah. Because it's something about faith that, like I said, faith is something that turned him on. They said when you start to doubt, it's like a turn off to God. He's not, that's what the Bible says, he's not pleased. It's like he's not pleased with that when you start to doubt, because doubt would erase and eradicate faith. But this woman's faith was so strong that, she just knew that if I just touch him, just touch his clothes, I shall be healed. There was no doubt in her mind. And the same thing happened with Jairus. Like I said, his situation was somewhat different. His daughter, 12 years old, she was at the point of death. And he came to Jesus asking for help. But now, on their way, someone came and reported to him that not to bother Jesus now because his daughter was dead. Yeah. Well, Jesus apparently heard what they said, so he told Jairus, don't be afraid, because your daughter she will be healed. That's faith. She's gone, she's dead. But to Jesus, she was just asleep. But so when Jesus got to Jairus' house, as a matter of fact, you could think about, just imagine what was going through Jairus, his mind at the time. Because he had an urgent situation. Then on their way to Jairus' house, this woman touched Jesus, and Jesus stopped. Then started to have a conversation with this woman about, who touched me, about what's going on. And I can imagine Jairus like, forget that. My daughter died. Now, his situation was urgent. But Jesus took the time to address this woman. And what I'm saying is that when it comes to Jesus, how we always say that God is always on time? Even though Jairus' daughter had passed, she was dead, but she was still not out of the reach of Jesus. He could still do what he had to do and what he knew he could do and what he had the ability to do. So although she was dead, he was going to raise her up. That's why he told Jairus, don't be afraid. Just believe. Just believe. Now, I can almost imagine what was going through his mind. My daughter is sick. She died. Yeah. And you stop worrying about this woman because, you felt something go out of you. But like I said, Jesus took the time to meet this woman's needs, just to encourage this woman. And once he got to Jairus' house, he talked about how people were around wailing because the girl had died. Back in that time, sometimes people would hire these professional mourners and stuff. They would go in and cry and wail and all this stuff. So he talked about how when Jesus got there, he told them to stop wailing because the girl was asleep. And so, like he talked about how the people had laughed at him. She's asleep, she's dead. And so Jesus took all these people and put them out the house, had them put out the house. And he only took 3 of his disciples in the room with the parent when he performed his miracle. And after he raised this girl back up from the dead, he said something that was real interesting to me, because he told the parent, see that you tell no one about this. And there was a lot of times in the Bible where Jesus would heal people, then he would tell them, don't tell anyone. Yeah. But then you have situations where he would tell people, go and tell what good things God has done for you. But I thought about that. Why would he tell these people not to tell anybody? Well, I found out that there are some things that you can't tell some people about Jesus because they're going to have to see it for themselves. Yes, sir. They got to see it for themselves. The story of a blind man that Jesus healed. And it talked about how Jesus touched this man and he asked him a question. He said, do you see anything? And the man said, well, I see trees. I see men, walking around, but they look like trees. They look like trees walking around. He talked about how Jesus touched the man again, and he saw everything clearly. But in that story, it talked about when Jesus got to this certain village, how he took the man and he pulled him aside, away from the crowd. And the reason that he did that is because Jesus had been to this town once before. And he had did things in this particular town once before, but people didn't embrace who he was. So that would explain why Jesus took this man away from the crowd, because these people were no longer worthy to experience what he was about to do. So when Jesus healed this man and gave him his sight back, he told this man, don't even go back home. In other words, the implication was what Jesus was doing was sending the man back to where he found him at. Because now remember, in that story, the man was blind. And people had set him at a certain place and stuff. So the last time people saw this man, he was blind, perhaps tripping over people, stumbling over stuff. But Jesus sends him back to that same place. And when the people saw him, they would know that something was different about him. And they knew something was different because of the way he was walking around. And so whenever God does something, some healing in your life, like I was telling you earlier, you don't have to try to explain the miracles in your life. Yeah. You don't have to try to convince people that things have changed in your life. People will know that something happened in your life by the way you're walking around. He's like, whenever you come in contact with Jesus, nothing about you will stay the same. Yeah. Nothing. So like I said, if Jesus healed you, like I was telling you earlier, if Jesus healed you or Jesus performed a miracle in your life, he don't expect you to go out there and try to explain it to nobody. So you don't go explain it, but the reason he does it for you to proclaim him, to give him praise. That's the whole purpose of miracle. So people try to, you go out there trying, like I said, you go out there trying to convince people, this and that. Like I told you, people will look at you like you're crazy. Because the miracles are something that, they are mind-blowing events. You cannot explain it. So, and my suggestion to you is don't even try. Because like I said, the whole purpose that he gives you the miracle and do the miracles in your life is so you can give him praise. It's not about, trying to explain it, It's not. So that's why he told Jairus, Jairus and his wife, no, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody about it. As a matter of fact, I think even in that story, after Jesus had raised the girl, he told them to give her something to eat. And I think the reason he did that, because he wanted to prove even to the parent that this girl was not a ghost or some apparition, that she was actually alive. Because a ghost don't need food. An apparition don't need food, but a human does. So that was convincing for these parents that this girl has actually been risen from the dead. And this is almost like a taste of what we can expect. It comes at a time when, Jesus, we all gonna leave here sometime. Even with, say, God performed some healing in my life, some sickness or something, and I praise him for it. But one of the things about the healing on this side is temporary. Because I can get healed of something on this side, but eventually something's going to take me out. But when there are situations sometimes, you can have all the faith in the world. Believe that God's going to do something. But when you're dealing with God, you got to deal with everything about him, everything that's connected to him. In other words, I can have faith that God will, for instance, I give you a good example. Some years ago, my mother passed. And I remember she stayed at St. Elizabeth Hospital for like 3 months because she had stroke. And every day we would go up there, we would pray. And when we would pray, we would always end that prayer, if it be your will. Now, we had faith, and we believed that God can heal my mother. But we couldn't deny his will. Because I'm saying, you can have all the faith in the world, and God wants you to have faith, but you still have to take into account his will. So in other words, he might not heal you on this side, but he'll wait to heal you on the other side. And when he heals you on the other side, it's a whole lot better than it is on this side, because when he heals you on the other side, it's permanent. Hallelujah. Like I tell you earlier, because on this side, I can get healed or something, but eventually something's going to take me out of here. But once he heals me on the other side, it's far better, because on the other side, there's nothing that can touch me. There's no sickness, there's no death, there's nothing. So when I'm healed, I'm healed. So it's far better on the other side than it is on this side. So, even when we lose loved one, that loved one is saved, hey, we have reason to, rejoice. All they did was just make a transition. Like I said, I know my mother is happy where she is. Because, people going through a whole lot. Like, all the things that she went through. See, I knew my mother didn't want to stay here in that kind of condition, not being able to do the things that, she used to do. But sometimes we get in our mind that, we want to hold on to something tangible. We got to hold on. But a lot of times when I was sitting in the hospital, I knew my mother was ready to go. Because there was a whole lot of days I sat up there and she would tell me, I'm ready for it to be over with. Because she knew she was saved. She knew where she was going. Because when people can no longer live that quality of life that they have, they're ready to go. And for some time, I got to believe that, it's just me. I got to believe that when people get to the point, like kind of close to death, and that person is saved, I really believe that God kind of gives them a glimpse into heaven. Yes, sir. And the reason I say that is because I was listening to my mother a lot when I sat in that room. And she was always calling my grandparents, her mother and father. She was always calling them. And so for a long time, I wondered about that, and I got to thinking, she must see something. So I believe that when people, when saints or believers get close to death, I think God just give them just a little glimpse of what's waiting for them on the other side. Just a little glimpse, just a little foretaste of it. And so that's enough to give you hope, to give anybody hope. So like I said, all it takes is just faith. Because faith will move God. But like I said earlier, when you're dealing with God, you have to deal with everything about him. You can't, you got to take into consideration his whole character, nature, everything, his sovereignty. Because, like I said, his will is going to be done, regardless. If you need a miracle in your life and God wants to heal you on this side, if that's his will, he's going to do that. And there's nothing that can stop that. But then like I said, he may not. He might decide to heal you on the other side. But you still have a reason to rejoice. A reason to rejoice. But like I said, faith is something that's actually moved God. That we have to have strong faith. I mean, it's one thing to talk about how strong your faith is, but there'll come a time in your life when your faith will be put to the test. And the question is, how would you stand up to that test? Because everything is not going to always be easy. And my question is today is that if you're going through something right now, you need a breakthrough. You need a miracle in your life right now. All you have to do is just trust Jesus. No matter what it is, no matter what you're going through. I mean, like I say, we have pastors talk about it all the time. Whatever God has for you, can't nobody stop that, or nobody take it. If God got something for you, you're going to get it. I don't care if it's healing or whatever it is. Like I say, but miracles are something that happen all around us all the time. And sometimes miracles don't have to be something that, something that's, so out of this world, but sometimes God can perform just simple miracles. I mean, just the fact that you woke up this morning and came here, that's a miracle. Because, like I said, a lot of people did what you did last night. Did what we did. They set their alarm. But a lot of those folks didn't get up. You set your alarm and got up. I mean, the fact that you're sitting in here right now, that's nothing, that's a miracle. I mean, because it wasn't your alarm clock that woke you up. It was God. And just being able to sit here, I'm clothed in my right mind. You got the activities of your limbs. That's a miracle to me. I can't do this. I have nothing to do with it. This God. That's why the Bible says it's in Him that we live, we move, and we have our being. It's all about God. It ain't about us at all. So the thing I just want to touch on is that, just like the characters in the story, we have to have faith to believe that God can do what He's going to do. No matter how bleak, your situation may look, put it in the hand of God and watch. And just like when Moses led the people out of Israel and had a situation where God asked Moses, what's that in your hand? The staff. So he told Moses to throw it on the ground, and how the staff had changed. So what I'm saying is that whatever you have in your hand or going on in your life, put it in the hands of God. And watch how He changes things. And watch how He works things out. We don't know how He's going to do it. As a matter of fact, I really don't even care how He do it, just so long as He does it. It doesn't matter. I may have to go through some stuff, to get it, or get that breakthrough or that miracle, but that's fine with me. But like I told you some time ago, like a little testimony, how I ended up working at the prison and stuff, show you how God works. The job that I had, I was there for like 18 years, and one day you go to work, the job is gone, you're laid off. And I always had a desire to work in the criminal justice system. But like I said, I never knew how God would get me there. Because sometimes the way God operates is different from what we think. But, like you're saying that the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Well, God don't always do that. God would take you in circles. Just like He did to Israel, just like when He took Israel out of Egypt. He could have took them straight into the promised land, but He didn't. He took them around the back way. Because sometimes when you go through something to get something, you learn to appreciate what you got because of what you went through to get it. Because, you know, when God got ready to move me, to open these doors up for me, I was applying for all kind of jobs. And like I said, all these doors were just closing. And I knew in my mind, hey, man, I knew I could do this job, have the skill. But what I didn't know at that time was who it was that was closing those doors up. So God was using that experience to get me to where he wanted me to be and what I had a desire for. So they say you never know how God will work out their miracles in your life. So, I went from, when that job played out, I had to get another job. Like I said, all these doors were closing, so I finally got a job working for the city. And I was kind of hesitant to take the job because they're only paying like minimum wage. And I made up in my mind, man, I ain't about to work for nobody for no $5 an hour. Ain't nowhere in the world. But all these doors, started closing up. Well, guess what? I had to take that $5 an hour job. But what I found out is that, I had bills, I had rent, I had all this stuff to pay. But from that $5 an hour job, I was able to pay car note, rent, bill, everything. You're talking about $120 a week. And so after everything was over, when I finally got the job got the job at the prison, I looked back, and at first I was thinking to myself, how did I do that? But then I realized I didn't. Yes, it wasn't me. So I have to give credit to God because only God could have done something like that. That's why I was saying, when you take what you got and you put it in God's hand, because God could, like I said, God can take a little bit and do a whole lot of stuff with it. I had a $120 a week job, but yet my car note, rent, and bill got paid. That's nothing but that's a miracle. To me, that's a miracle. 'Cause I know people who work at plants and stuff struggle to pay bills and stuff, but God took $120 a week and got me through all that. And so I knew it was nobody but God that could pull something like that off. And to me, that's a miracle. That's how awesome God is, and that's the way he operates if you just trust him. Yes, sir. So you got to have faith if you just trust him that he could do that. He do the things that seem impossible. So just take whatever you got and just put it in the hands of God and just watch him work. So I don't care how bleak your situation is, trust him. Well, that's all I have for this morning, so I'm going to just open the floor up. So anybody got any comments?
Have you any rivers that seem uncrossable? Have you any mountains that you can't seem to tunnel through? God specializes in things